Access 2007 Advanced Queries. There are many different flavors of queries that you can run right in Access. They're just different buttons in the query design area. So until now, we've been running select queries, but you can do so much more. You could just extract a few records from a table and make an entirely new separate tables. You could delete numbers of records based on criteria instead of having to go in onesie-twosies into forms or tables to do so. You could also append data to tables that already exist. You can update information. Maybe I need to update a discounted price or a misspelling. There's a query that'll take our criteria and throw the correct information right back into that table. And every query within Access is based off of standard SQL code. SQL, Structured Query Language, is an industry standard. Microsoft has a little bit of their own flavor put into it, but it really is similar to what you'll see in many other types of database languages. Let's go ahead and jump right on into Access. Here I have my Zoo database open. We're going to create a table, make a new table, but we'll base it off membership. So I want you to see the data we're working with first. Take a look at the cities. We have Phoenix, Gilbert, Mesa, Scottsdale. Most of these are Arizona, but we do have a few Kansas City items. So we are going to make a new table based off of the Kansas City criteria. We want that to be separate than our basic table. And by the way, notice that PHX and Phoenix are two different ways that we have these cities set up. We're going to address that with our update query. I can close my memberships table. I can leave it open. It does not affect the creation of the query. Here is the command, create. On the create ribbon, we have two query choices, Query Wizard or Query Design. We'll go into Query Design because this is not an option in Query Wizard. What table is the basis for my make table query? Memberships is. So I'll choose close. Here are all the fields. If I were just to start adding fields and hit the run button, I'd have a typical select query. That's why it's selected right here. That's your default type. I want to make a table. The button looks like a black exclamation mark with a starburst on a table. What will I call my new table? It's a make table query, so I can't select a table that already exists. Let's go ahead and call this Kansas City Members. It's very original. I'm going to create it in the current database, but the nice thing is I could make this a very new table in a different Access database that exists somewhere else out there, probably on my network. I'll choose OK, and now I get to select the fields that I want in my new table. I'd like to have all of the fields, so I will double-click on the table's title bar, which selects all of the fields, and now I can click and drag on the very top entry and drop it into my grid area. Sometimes you'll hear this grid area referred to as the QBE, Query by Example. I don't want to make this table based off of every single record that already exists, right? I just want Kansas City. So I find the field where I'll add the criteria, the city field, and here's the criteria. I'll type in Kansas City. It needs to be spelled correctly, but it is not case sensitive. Now, I only have one piece of criteria, and we have a previous nugget about throwing criteria into your query, so I'm not going to spend time on that, except for saying items that are on the very same row indicate and criteria. Items that are in the same column, well, they don't even have to be in the same column, but items that are on different rows indicate or criteria. I only have one piece of criteria. I'm ready to run this query. The run button will tell me I'm about to paste 2 rows into a new table. All right, that's not a huge amount of information, but we know that that is accurate, so I'll choose yes. It went and it created a new table called Kansas City Members. Let's go ahead and check that out. Here we see we have those 2 records, and yes, in fact, these people are from Kansas City. I can close this table now. It's a separate table. I can base queries now off of this table. I can export it into other places if I wanted to. I am going to save this specific query because maybe I'd like to run this again. I'm going to call this memberships make table, although I don't even have to say make table in the name of the query. because as you'll see, it has a special icon. This indicates it's a make table query. These queries are all select queries. So I hope you've gotten the reason why you'd ever do a make table query. Your tables may have hundreds of thousands of records that exist, and it just might make sense in your business scenario to separate, to take some of those records out of that base table and just make new, totally separate tables. Like maybe I have a huge sales database and I just want to now break it up into the different regions. I have the query for my East Coast sales region, and I'll just make that into a new table, and I could even ship that one on over to the branch office on the East Coast and then delete those records out of my big base table. That's one functional use of the make table query. Well, I mentioned the idea of deleting the Kansas City members or the East Coast sales region records from that base table. So let's do that now. Let's create a delete query. I can close my membership make table query and I'm back here to nothing. I want to run a delete query. Again, I create a new query. Create ribbon, query design. I'm going to delete items from the base table. That was the memberships table. I'll click close. Okay, again, I need to choose the command for delete query. Very handy. It has a red X next to it. When I select that, now I see this grid has updated. I choose which fields, what I want to delete, and what criteria I am going to delete from that. So city is going to be my basis for deletions. The field is city, the table is memberships. Delete where the criteria is Kansas City. I could even have some or criteria here, and naturally I could add more fields and have and criteria, because maybe it'd only be the members that are in Kansas City who paid $75, but I just want to delete everybody from Kansas City from the memberships table. I'll click run, and it will say, warning, as you know already from our previous nuggets, when you delete a record in Access, it is gone. You cannot undo it. You can bring it back from backup copies, or maybe you have it somewhere else on your network, or you can recreate it, but you cannot undo that. Are you sure? Yes, I am sure. All right, here's the thing. If I were to save this, every time I double-clicked on it and ran it, it would run this again. So if my base memberships table ended up with some Kansas City people in it, and I ran this query by double-clicking on it to open it from down here, it would say, great, I'm going to go delete those people from Kansas City, whether or not they've been added into the new Kansas City members table. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Well, I could delete that criteria so I don't have I will, just to be safe. It's not necessarily functional. So this is the delete query, and it's Kansas City members. And I'll choose OK. And now we see we also have a delete query down here. I can close this query. Let's check out the memberships table, and we should see if we have any Kansas City. An easy way to do this would be to sort that, and we can look for the K's. They would go in here, right? Another way we could do this would be to filter, and look, we don't even have Kansas City as a criteria for filtering, so we cannot find Kansas City in there. I'll choose cancel, and we have successfully deleted Kansas City records. Do I want to save changes? Again, this is the design. It's not the data. Anytime you change the sort, the filter, or the size of a column, it's going to ask you if you want to save those changes. Do I want to save the changes? No. It was fine the way it was. Now, let's do an append query. I have a new table that was brought into my Zoo Access database, and it has all different types of new animal species that I don't already have in my animals table. Well, I'd like to put them together. I don't want to create a new table. I just simply want to add the new species to be convenient with the animals table that already exists. Again, I need to create a new query. So the create ribbon, query design, and this time I am going to use the table called animals import. I'll add that. I'll click close. I'm appending information, so I find the append table. It has a plus because I'm adding records to a table that already exists. When I click that, it's saying, well, what table would you like these records to end up in? I am appending to the animals table because I am a good DBA, database administrator, and I know where it would make sense for me to append these records to. I will choose OK, and now my grid area has updated. I have the field that I'm going to append, which is species, and I'm going to append it to a table that's already been chosen, the animals table, to the species field. And Access figured it out because they have the same name. If they didn't have the same name, that would still be okay. You would simply select it from that pull-down menu. I have no need for criteria. I could sort it in ascending order if I'd like to. I'll click the Run button. You are about to append 10 rows. So now my table will have 10 new rows. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Easy as that. The thing about running these queries, though, is we don't get immediate gratification. When we were doing the select queries, when we clicked Run, we went right on into Query View and we could see what happened. But because we're working with different tables with this specific query, we're not going to get that immediate gratification. Let's go ahead and save this as our species append, and I'll choose OK. And you can see now we have that different logo there as well, that different icon. I'll close this, and let's open up the animals table and see. I guess you didn't see it beforehand, and you didn't see the base table that we were appending, but we do have 20 records now. Actually, we can go into animals import, and you can see there were 10 records. We had black bear. So we can go back to our animals, and we have 20 records. And do we have black bear in here? We certainly do. And we appended it in alphabetical order, ascending order, so we can pretty much tell that we started off here with the African elephant because that's really where our alphabetical order starts off. So the append query can be a very fantastic database maintenance task for you, especially if you work with a lot of data that comes in from Excel spreadsheets and you want to incorporate it into the rest of your Access database, or if you have a lot of other departments that have their own Access database files, well, you can import them into your own Access file and take advantage and use them. I'm going to close these items, and our update query is a very scary query, but it can be one of the best maintenance tools in your tool belt as far as making changes to data on a large scale. We are going to do two things. Let's go ahead and take a look at our memberships table. We are going to make sure that all of our Phoenix PHX is updated to say Phoenix like that. It's always nice to be standard. We don't want to have many different representations of the same item. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at these membership fees, and we are going to offer our members a 10% discount. They don't have to pay $75. Hey, they get to pay 10% less, which is, I don't know the math, $69, something like that. I'm not as quick at math as perhaps you all are out there. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to show you a little trick. This update query is going to change the values in my table, and I just don't want that. So I'm going to make a copy of this and paste it, but this is also a maintenance task that you can use. It's not a query, but it is something you can use in Access. I'll copy memberships. So right-clicking and choosing copy, and I just right-click anywhere. It's weird, different than a lot of other Office apps. And when I choose paste, it's going to say, what do you want to call your table? Copy of memberships is clear for us here. Of course, that's not a very good name in practice. This is why I wanted to show you this. Look at that. You could choose structure only. Maybe you spent a great deal of time on the design of a table, great data types, fantastic property setup, but you just don't want all that data. So you could copy the structure and then use that new empty table as the basis for something else. Structure and data is what I'm going to do. But look at that. I could append this data to an existing table. I didn't have to run an append query the way that I did. But I do want to copy the structure and data because we are running through a safety, just really a safety check. So it's alphabetically in here, copy of memberships. Again, create ribbon is where I find the command. Again, under query design and copy of memberships. Here are all those fields in there. This is an update table, and the icon looks like an editing pencil and a black exclamation mark. I'll select that, and my grid down here has changed a bit. What field and what do I want to update it to? First off, let's update the city field. I want to update it to say Phoenix. Make sure I spell that correctly. And my criteria is PHX. All right, so I want to update all occurrences of PHX to Phoenix. When I click the Run button, I'm about to update 5 rows. Is that okay? Yes, that's my plan. Let's go ahead and open up Copy of Memberships now, and our cities should all say Phoenix. I'll close this. No, I don't want to save the sort order. And I'm going to run another update query. I could have done these both at the same time, but I wanted to show them to you separately so you can really see the difference. And I think it's not bad to see it one more time to help you retain that information. I'm going to press delete on my keyboard, and now I have no criteria in my update query at all. This time, membership fee is what I'm going to update. I'm going to use math. Believe it or not, I want to give them a 10% discount, so I have to choose the field, the operator, and the value that I'm going to use in this operation. The syntax is a square brace or square bracket, however you say that, on your keyboard. It's near the enter key, and that's what it looks like. I clicked outside of it so you could see it, which really made Access angry. So I need to type in the name of the field, membership fee, and closing that with the square bracket. I'm multiplying, so that's the star, the asterisk, and I want to give them a 10% discount, so I'm going to multiply it times 90%. I'm going to change the value in the field to be 90% of what it was in the past. I need to run this. Notice we went back to that Home tab because we flipped into the tables. So I'll go back to the Design tab, and now I have the Run. I want to make sure that I still have Update selected. I should have known I did because I still see Update there. I want to caution you before I click Run. If I were to click Run and then say, okay, cool, and then click Run again, it's going to give it another 90%. It's going to give it another 90% each time I click Run. So this is the dangerous run. You're about to update 27 rows. Yes. You got to remember that you just did that. If you click Run again, goodness gracious, you're updating it again. So let's go back to Copy of Memberships and take a look at the values. Membership fee, oh, $67.50 is a 10% discount from $75. Did any of you get that out there? All right, I'll go ahead and close this table, and I can save this query, and I'm going to call this Discount Update. Discount Update, okay? And now I should see this here. Discount Update. It's at the bottom because it's scary and dangerous, and we do not want to run this unless we absolutely mean to. You, as a proactive DBA, may need to run some sort of update all the time for maintenance sake. Now, every single one of our queries is based off of SQL code. Let's go ahead and take a look at our animal food planning query. Here we have some information. To be able to see the SQL code, we can go up here to View and choose SQL View. Again, that's Structured Query Language. It's saying select from the animal inventory table the animal name field. Also from the animal food table, the food name field. So the commas separate all the fields that we're selecting. From is telling us exactly which table. From animal inventory as animal inventory 1, because if we were to go back into design view, we'd see this is called animal inventory 1. Back into SQL view, it's telling us that we have an inner join, animal inventory on animal food.foodid equals animal inventory.foodid lookup. So it's saying if we have a number of different tables, which we do, animal inventory and animal food, that there is a related key, which is the food ID. It's called two different things in both of those tables, but Access knows it has the same data because we have an inner join. This is basic SQL. It ends with the semicolon. You could do this on your own. You could open up a fresh sheet of paper here in the Access Query area and go to town. You could bring in SQL code that you have from other database applications and just make sure it has the same syntax as Microsoft is using here, and you could do that on your own. But by now you're probably guessing that it is a whole lot easier to just use this query by example grid area. I want to show you down here, you also have these buttons that allow you to see information. So if you feel more comfortable using these buttons down here, you can certainly do that. And maybe you noticed I did a data sheet view, design view, SQL view. It's kind of easier to use these up here, but just as Microsoft always does for you, it's for your own convenience. We have covered many different types of queries here. I hope that you all feel comfortable that you access the Create ribbon to choose Query Design. Then from the Design ribbon, you can choose the type of query. Select Query as the basic, and it does absolutely no maintenance whatsoever. The Run button will execute whatever you have chosen, and this view is just going to show you the results of your query, and of course Design View is where it's really all started. Let's review what we did in this nugget. We really looked at a lot of information. We took advantage of the Make a New Table from a table that already existed in Access. We said, you know, we only want to see some records out of this table, so you can use that to break apart hefty tables. You can also go back and delete records in large quantities instead of onesie-twosie deletes. You can append data to tables that already exist. This is very nice if you work in an environment where there's always new data coming in from many different sources, but your goal is to use your Access database as really the glue to hold it all together. You can update text or number values as well as other types of data in there, and it's all based off of the SQL code. So you can type it on your own, you could use SQL code that exists in other applications that you have, or you can go into even more advanced queries on your own by typing SQL code. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.